Is Christianity really true? Is the Bible really reliable? These are the types of questions that skeptics and atheists ask. And I'm joined today by Dr. Kyle Keltz, who is a Christian scholar, who is a philosopher of religion, who teaches English and philosophy at the collegiate level to help engage these questions. Now, Kyle, one of the atheists who raises these types of questions is a guy by the name of Dan Barker, who's a fairly well-known atheist. Some people say he's one of the most well-known atheists in the United States, an ex-preacher who I think is the co-founder for the Foundation for the Freedom from Religion or something like that, and
Yes.
travels around the U.S. and does debates and lectures challenging the Christian faith. And you and Tricia Scribner edited a book and then also contributed to a book called Answering the Music Man, which is essentially engaging some of Dan Barker's arguments against Christianity. Okay, so let's just maybe give a thumbnail for how you responded to each of those objections. So one of them, again, was, are faith and reason compatible? So
Okay.
what's Barker's complaint, and then kind of in a bottom line, how did you respond to that?
Okay. He defines faith as a belief in something even though you know it to be false, or a belief in spite of the evidence.
Right.
And what I did in that chapter was I just showed that that is not what Christianity teaches.
Right.
And you could actually find this out with a quick Google search, by the way. It just amazes me that he holds to this thesis. But I mean, in Christianity, for example, there are at least three mature, developed views of the relationship between faith and reason that you can see in the history of Christianity, dating all the way back to the 2nd century with like Tertullian and other church fathers, like 150 AD and that far back.
Yeah.
So it was just it's almost embarrassing to see him say that this is what faith is and this is why I reject it. So what I did is I just showed that there's all these views, and in the chapter I talked about Thomas Aquinas' view of faith and reason, a view called the synthesis of faith and reason view. So I explain the details of that in there and just show people what Christians actually believe about faith and reason.
Right. And so Christians have long held that our faith should be rational, should be reasonable.
Yes.
Right. If it is indeed true.
Yes. Yeah. And so going along with Aquinas, he defines faith as taking something on the basis of an authority. Mm-hmm. And, reasoning is learning about the world through all the ways that we do, whether it's philosophy or science or other means. And he argues for like three types of truths. He says there's truths of reason only. These are truths like the atomic weight of oxygen or the number of planets in the galaxy. Truths of faith and reason. These would be truths that the Bible talks about, but also you can discover through reason. So that'd be like God's existence or the existence of the soul or Jesus' resurrection. You can use philosophy, you can use history to confirm these things. Or then there's truths of faith only. These are things that he says, well, we can't use philosophical arguments to determine this. It would be like the Trinity or the hypostatic union. We can use reason to show that's not contradictory, but we can't use an argument to do that. So, but when you learn the philosophy and all the apologetics, it makes it so that you're not taking the truths of faith and reason on faith. You know those things, and then it strengthens your faith whenever you believe things like the Trinity and
right. So it sounds like Aquinas had a pretty sophisticated perspective on faith and reason and how we know things.
Yes, hundreds of years ago, and Dan Barker's presenting this like all Christians believe that faith is believing something you know to be false. Right. So it's just it's just sad, and we're just trying to clear up the misconceptions.
Yeah. So another chapter that you wrote is entitled "Are God's Attributes Incoherent and Incompatible?" So again, what's Dan Barker's complaint here, and then how did you engage his points?
I really thought that when Dan Barker, I think that when he talks about in Godless and his debates, when he starts talking about the attributes of God, it's this might be the most clearest time when he doesn't really understand what Christianity is teaching. So in his book, he makes many complaints about the attributes of God. He doesn't think that they make sense in and of themselves. And then he argues that it makes it even worse when you try to say that God is this and that at the same time. These things contradict each other. So, I mean, he makes many complaints that we don't really have time to cover all of them, but I can talk about what he says about omniscience and omnipotence, for example.
Sure.
So omniscience, God is all-knowing. An interesting thing he says is that if God is all-knowing, he needs to have like a picture or a concept of everything that exists in his mind. But that would mean that he would also need to have a picture, and that he uses that word, a picture of himself in his mind. But then that picture would need to have a picture of him in it. You know, it's like saying that you have a map of the entire world, but if it's really accurate, that map would also need to have a map in it, and then that map would have a map. And he thinks that is like goes to infinity and is some kind of absurdity. So what I do in the chapter on that part is I just clear up, you know, what do we think omniscience is, and a classical understanding of omniscience is to just say that God knows all existing things. He knows, and he knows what he could make, you know, anything that he could conceivably make. To say that God is all knowing, I think, especially in this aspect, it just shows that he kind of has this misconception of who God is, because God, and this isn't just wishful thinking, philosophers can reason to what God is like for certain reasons. You know, like in the Kalam, we say that if the universe had a beginning, all space and time and energy had a beginning, then the cause of the universe must be immaterial and be all powerful, and be, you know, all knowing, to be able to create all that. So, but the thing is, God is thought to be immaterial. So if God does know himself, but that doesn't have to have some kind of image that has an image of it and an image of it. So it was just really bizarre to hear what he said about God's omniscience. And his idea of God's omnipotence, he says that power is inherently a physical thing. So right off the bat, he's creating problems for himself, because it's not wishful thinking that God is immaterial. It's a conclusion that we can reach from reason alone, not to mention that the Bible says that God is spirit. So he obviously has issues with God being omnipotent, because then he would need to be some kind of infinite physical force or something like that. So I just cleared up that that's not what Christianity teaches. To say that God is omnipotent means that he can create anything that's conceivable, you know. So, and then he gets into how God's attributes contradict each other. A really quick example is an argument he makes, what he calls he has an acronym for it, the Faying Argument. It's like the free will argument for the non-existence of God. And what he says is that God can't have free will and be all-knowing at the same time, because if he's all-knowing, that means that he knows everything he's going to do. But if he knows what he's going to do, then he doesn't have genuine choice. And I think he's just misunderstanding Christianity and making conclusions that no Christians have made before. You know, to say that you know what someone is going to do doesn't necessarily mean they don't have a choice in it, you know.
Thanks, Kyle. And if you want to learn more about some of the resources that Kyle has produced for us here at Reasons to Believe, go to our website, reasons.org, and search Kyle Keltz's name. And then also you will be able to find links to Kyle's website and to other resources that Kyle has developed as part of his own personal ministry. And again, would encourage you to look for a copy of this book called Answering the Music Man, a very good resource that's a great introduction to Christian apologetics and to Christian theology too, it sounds like. So thanks again, Kyle.